welcome everyone. Please use your clap emoji to welcome Mrs. Phoebe. Welcome, Phoebe, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, everyone. I'm really excited for this workshop this morning. It looks like we have a smaller group, which is really fantastic because I would love for everybody to give feedback, ask questions, give comments. So I'll be providing some times during that space to be doing that. Let me just pull up my slides here. Hold on one moment. All right. Just 1 second here. Okay. Can everyone see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. So yes, this morning we're going to be discussing distributing your books globally and profitably. I'm sure that some of these steps are going to be very familiar to some of you. We're going to be both looking at creative aspects, financial aspects, and also partnership opportunities. So yes, I am the COO of the Children's International Book Club. And I'd like to share a little bit about the heart behind the practical steps that we're taking and how we strategize distribution. I ran across this quote the other day, which I was just very fascinated by. It's by Oprah Winfrey, the one and only. Books showed me there were possibilities in life, that there were actually people like me living in a world I could not only aspire to, but attain. Reading gave me hope. For me, it was the open door. This really is the experience that TCIBC is wanting to offer to children. So TCIBC was founded with one goal in mind, which is to provide relatable and engaging books to children around the world. We believe it's vital for a child to feel they are seen and very well represented in the stories and educational tools that they use. We partner with insightful, intentional, and empowering publishing companies, writers, illustrators, schools, and programs such as ACAIN to bring their vision to life and to make a long-lasting impact on young minds. So we carry out this vision in a number of different ways. First of all, it's very important to us that we partner with authors and publishers who have a very similar vision to us. We also think globally, but we strategize locally. So this means that each avenue that we're distributing in, we consider the local policies, the level of interest in that specific area, and the culture of the audience of our book collection, and what exactly they're looking for. We also provide a framework for publications to be available in multiple formats. In this day and age, it's really important that people have as many, that the audience has as many options as possible, so they can choose what type of way they would like to read. So our newest way of distributing is through audiobook, which I'm very excited about because this provides a whole new avenue for even people who are visually impaired to be able to engage with reading and books. We also work with local school distribution. So we work, for example, we work with a group of Lego schools to present families with high quality, relevant reading material for their children to enjoy in their leisure time. We've seen a lot of schools around Lagos who do provide book opportunities like this. However, a lot of the books are shipped from abroad, and the subject and content of the books are really not anything that the children are very interested in. And we're very passionate for providing them with books that have to do with their culture, have to do with their background and upbringing, and are something that they can really engage with. And then the third thing that we do is ebook distribution and management. So ebook publications are available everywhere all of the time even without printing. This is something that has been trending, especially since COVID. And so we connect to a list of multiple ebook platforms, which includes Amazon Kindle. And then the final thing is some of all of those little details that go into distribution. So we do quality evaluations of publications, we do marketing, we partner with the author or the publisher to help push the books out. We do ISBN consultation. And then of course we research around local interest and policies, which would make distribution successful rather than an investment with no reward. And then finally, as well, we do networking and connecting to a group of like-minded people within the industry. So that's a little bit about the Children's International Book Club. You can go down to our website, which is listed down here at the bottom of the screen, and that shows some of our books that are available in our collection currently. So next, we're going to kind of dive into the challenges of distribution. I have here listed 4 main challenges. I'm definitely sure that there are more than these 4 challenges. So I would love to hear from the audience if they've encountered other challenges. Feel free to write in the message box about some of the challenges you've encountered, but we're going to be focusing on these 4 today. The first one is remaining relevant. Second one is funding and resources. The third is difficulty engaging the audience. And then the fourth thing is lack of strategy. So the first one is remaining relevant. I think that this is probably the most challenging, but also the most important aspect of everything. In order to make a profit, you really do have to know the current industry trends and statistics and how your publication fits within those trends. So I encourage everyone to ask themselves these list of questions, and depending on your answer, it's going to help you identify areas that you need to focus on and improve your structure and your set of goals for. And it will also tell you what you're doing successfully. So the first question is, what is the world missing and how does my work fill that gap? The second one is, what impact is made when someone reads my publication? The third is, who is my audience? The fourth is, how do I reach that audience? And finally, what details in my publication are drawing the audience in? Sorry about that, everybody. Yes, so these 5 questions will help you to identify areas that you need to set some goals and areas that you are already on the right track to. So for example, I'm going to be talking about a couple of different industry trends. As I mentioned earlier, ebook distribution has seen a huge spike in the past couple of years, particularly since 2020. A lot of people were stuck at home during COVID, and ebooks were the only way for them to access new and interesting literature. So the global ebook market was valued at $18.13 billion in 2020 and is expected to reach $23.12 billion by 2026. And then as well, if you Google statistics and research about this, by the year 2030, it's estimated to be even up to $30 billion. Another spike that we've seen is an interest of African authors, which is something that's extremely exciting. So if you Google something as simple as African book or African author, there's about 5 pages on Google that come up of different articles and blogs discussing the next and best and brightest African authors. And this is speaking to the interest of the diaspora, who are really in need of better literature, which discusses themes and subjects similar to their own background and upbringing, which we haven't really seen in mainstream publications up until recently. So the second challenge is funding and resources. It's extremely difficult to source good quality printing within Nigeria, especially if you don't have the resources to print in bulk. A lot of new publications we see printed based on demand. So it's important to consider, where exactly your funding and resources are coming from. So the 4 main things are crowdsourcing, which means group fundraising, sponsorship, applying for grants, and as well as learning from other authors. So all of these are pretty tasking, but are very well worth it. If you have someone who has the same vision and passion for you for distributing your publication, especially a company, for example, there are a lot of companies out there who are looking for opportunities to sponsor creative publications that are addressing the need for the diaspora to have access to publications that are speaking to their experience and their background. And it's the same for grants as well. It takes a lot of background research and documents and publications. But not only do they give you access to funding, they'll also give you access to a larger audience of readers and supporters. So then the third challenge is difficulty engaging with your audience. So I think this is difficult for a lot of authors and creatives because we really love a person-to-person connection over our publications, as well as just being able to sit and read a physical print of a book is so much better to a lot of us. But we can't deny the power of social media and online engagement. So if you haven't already, it's really important to take the time to start a social media page promoting your publication, or if you're not able to, have someone help you do that. There's a lot of tools online that will help you trend. So I would encourage people to research those tools and use them. For example, some of these include hashtags. Putting hashtags on your post opens you up to a wider public audience that wouldn't necessarily be able to find you if you didn't use hashtags. And then the third thing under engaging with your audience is being prepared to answer questions inquirers may have. A lot of people are going to find your publications, realize that there's nothing else out there like that, and be very excited about it and want to know some background information about the inspiration behind your publications, as well as your plans for future publications. So it's important that you're prepared to kind of engage and answer questions with your audience. And then the final thing that's very important is to remain calm and have a mindset to learn when receiving harsh critique. When you're first putting something out in the world, it might not be perfect, and a lot of people will notice those things that are wrong with it. And it's very important that you can take that critique. And sometimes it will be important critique, sometimes not so much. But it's important to have a learning mindset when you're first engaging with your audience. And then the last challenge is lack of strategy. I think that this is, again, something that a lot of creatively minded people have struggles with, but it's extremely important to really focus on all aspects of the details. So think about your publication as it's going into the hands of a new audience, a new person who has never heard of it before. Are they impressed? Are they excited to know more about the publication? Does the feel of the printed publication impress them? Are the pages good quality? Is the cover made from a long-lasting material? And then even from there, does the first page that they read impress them where they want to finish the rest of the book? All of those different aspects for physical printing is very important, but then also strategizing for a long-term plan. So thinking back to remaining relevant, the first challenge, really sit and take your time to think of a long-term vision and plan and where you would like to see your publications take you. Again, selling in as many formats as possible is very important in this day and age, especially with the rise of ebook popularity. And then the final thing as well is making sure that you understand the structure of how you'll be making a profit from selling your books. So it's both having the mindset of engaging with a new audience and someone getting a physical print of your book and really being impressed by how it looks and the first page of it, as well as making a long-term plan for your publications. All right, so those are the four main challenges. Now I'm going to kind of transition to something a bit more positive, which is some specific action steps that you can take to take ownership of the success of your book sales. So specifically, these are all geared towards international distribution. But interestingly, the first one is maintaining a strong local readership. The second one is partnering with book events and blogs. And the third thing is promoting positive reviews. The fourth thing is strategizing partnerships. So the first thing, maintaining a strong local readership. If your book is locally successful, it's much more likely to do well internationally. If you have a fan base locally, even if it's small or big, you'll more easily transition into engaging into international distribution. So the first thing that you can do is organize free reading opportunities. This is something that ACAIN is engaging with, which is very exciting, especially at ACAIN Book Festival. It was exciting to see reading corners with children. But consider really creative ways to get your publication out there. You could do giveaways. You could even do raffles where people pay, say, $500. Can reach an audience who wouldn't necessarily be able to access it by buying it or purchasing it. You can also look at reading your publication live online. This is something that's pretty fun and doesn't take a lot of work, either streaming on Instagram or YouTube and reading your book or part of your book to your online audience. The second thing is targeting an influential audience. So this is using your social media to work with online influencers who have a lot of followers, for example, and can influence other people to purchase your books as well. Another audience would be popular book clubs locally and avid supporters. So it's important to find people who promote your publication simply because it impacted them and they enjoyed it and nothing else. The third thing is working with a local distributor. So for example, TCIBC, as I mentioned before, we work with a network of Lego schools to support children reading relevant literature in their leisure time. This is something that we're very, very passionate about. And it's very, very important. So working with some type of local distribution who's strategizing about getting the books accessible to as many children as possible from different socioeconomic backgrounds is extremely important. So the second thing that you can do is partner with book events and blogs. So I think that the Association of Children Authors and Illustrators of Nigeria is doing a really fantastic job of connecting all of these different illustrators, editors, writers. And it's very vital to use this community to help you grow. So obviously, I encourage everyone to attend events and workshops. And then I've also listed a number of other book blogs here. These are both useful just for you to know what's going on in the industry and current events, as well as reaching out to them to see if they would be able to feature some of your work on their blogs. Now, most of these focus on adult literature. A few of them, specifically African Book Addict, has published articles highlighting children's books. So the first one, Lit Hub, is an international book club based out of the UK. Brittle Paper is international as well, but it specifically focuses on African authors, as well as African Book Addict and allafricanbooks.com. Bookriot.com is a great option if you're trying to reach North America, and Love Reading is a good avenue if you're trying to reach the UK and Europe. So I would definitely encourage everybody to reach out to these blogs or follow them for current events. So the third thing that you can do is promoting positive reviews. Collaborating with your publisher or distributor is very important to create a publication and also a selling platform that's worth 5-star reviews. Prioritizing these reviews and making them visible on your online listings, for example, will ensure that people who are Google searching for something similar to your publication can find your online listing more easily if it has, say, 4 or 5 stars. So it's extremely important to work with whoever you're collaborating with to get those reviews online. So the first thing that you can do is ask fellow authors, illustrators, or even friends to critique your work before you go completely public with it. It's important as many people at your publication as much as possible so that it's very well polished when it is finally public. And then the next thing is asking readers to give feedback and review your work. So this can be as simple as even writing a handwritten note whenever you sell somebody a book, or asking them if they can take the time to message you or go onto your online platform to give a review. And then obviously public positive reviews. So if someone outside of your audience has access to those reviews. And then again, the more 5-star reviews you have, the more online searches recommend your publication to a public audience. All right, the last thing that you can do is strategize partnerships. I think that this is probably the most important thing out of everything if you're focusing on international distribution. So it's important to take time to think and plan your long-term vision and goals for your publication, and then identify areas in which you need to outsource. It's my understanding that Nigeria has a lot of self-published authors, which I think is really fantastic. But it is also important to realize that international distribution takes a lot of localized on-the-ground work to get things running. So you have to understand the time that those things take. So identifying areas which you may need to outsource is very important. So knowing your role as an author or an illustrator, for example, you really need to promote your amazing work, and then identify practical goals that you can work on to help publicize your work. The second thing is knowing the role of the parties you're outsourcing to. So for example, if you have a publisher, knowing what exactly you're asking your publisher to do, making sure that they have your best interest in mind. And then the same for a distributor, making sure that your distributor is prioritizing getting your publication or even future publications on the minds of the local audience. All right, and then the third thing, of course, is maintaining a clear profit breakdown. I think that, again, this is something that a lot of creatively minded people struggle with, because we have a clear vision for wanting to create a publication that moves people's hearts and influences them, and we want as many people to have access to it. But it's much more difficult to do that while also maintaining a profit. So take the time to know all of the financial details of your publication. Know your production cost, know what commission margins you're giving to your partners, and know what your own profit is going to be with each book that you sell, as well as your profit and loss reports from month to month and year to year. Something that you'll need to consider as well is inflation, especially with elections coming up in Nigeria and the Naira going up, but also considering how much your audience is willing to pay. And if you're partnering with a publisher and a distributor who have your best interest in mind, this is something that they're also going to prioritize. It's a tricky balance, but it's very, very important. So that concludes my 4 action steps that you can take for successful distribution. The conclusion is that really, truly, you should be your biggest fan of your publication. It's extremely important that you're personally promoting your work and you're getting your name out there, you're getting samples to important online platforms, you're promoting your work as much as possible. And then as well, you're collaborating with other authors, illustrators, and future thinking publishers and distributors who have your best interest in mind. I do have a couple of prompts for us to go over if anyone is interested. I'll circle back to those, but the Children's International Book Club would really love to hear from some authors and illustrators. So if you have any inquiries or would like some general information or partnership information, as well as distribution opportunities, you can email tcibchohelp@gmail.com. We would love to get to know some more Nigerian authors and publishers and illustrators as well. So I do have some of these prompts that I would love to hear from you guys. I listed the challenges, the 4 main challenges earlier, but I would love to know what are some specific challenges that you have encountered with circulating your publication, and are there any tools that you've used that have been helpful?
Phoebe,
Yes.
if I may, I think what may also be quite useful is if you could give some specifics on what it is that TCIBC actually offers to authors, to self-published authors, and what you are seeking. I know we're going to have Q&A later, but if I may just preempt by saying that it would also be good to understand more of why you are doing what you are doing, why you are in Nigeria doing this, and how you are funded. How are you funded, etc.? Who are your backers? Who are your partners? Who is working with you? That will help people to have more clarity, because there were some, questions on our group chat earlier on about this workshop. So these things would help to provide clarity and context into the work that you do.
Yes, absolutely. So let me go back to some of these first slides here. All right. So specifically, TCIBC, again, like I said, we think globally, but we strategize locally. So for example, within Lagos, we focus on school distribution. What we see is a lot of schools have books available, reading clubs available for children, but the prices of those books are extremely expensive because they're not based within the continent. So people are paying for them in US dollars, for example, shipping them from abroad. And then when they receive the books, they're not even about subjects that are really relevant to a lot of the students here. So school distribution is something that we're very passionate about, because I think it also speaks towards internalizing education, that education shouldn't necessarily be completely focused on a Western standard, but what literature the children have access to should be about their own culture and upbringing. So local school distribution is what we do within Lagos. And then for international distribution, we focus on ebooks and audiobooks. So practically speaking, we work with both self-published authors as well as publishing companies right now. Those two different partnerships obviously look a little bit different. But say, for example, you're a self-published author and you would like help putting your book into an ebook, you'd come to a book club and go through a submission process where we review your publication and see how we think we could help with both local distribution as well as ebook distribution. There's a few things that we screen and look at and need to know, obviously, what your base price is, what your distribution price is, what your recommended retail prices are. We look at all of those things and see how we can help distribute and put your physical book into an ebook. Typically with distribution margins around the world, they range anywhere from 20% profit margin to even a 50% profit margin. TCIBC typically does a 30% margin, which is very reasonable compared to 50%. So those are all things that we look at and talk about with anyone who's interested in distribution, whether it's a publisher or a self-published author.
So is that 30% above the retail price or 30% out of the retail price?
Out of the retail price, yes.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any specific questions about what we offer as distribution?
I think you were pretty clear on that, on ebooks and putting them on all kinds of platforms, including Amazon, and then the audiobooks as well. But maybe you can show some more, tell some more about what platforms these audiobooks are available on.
There are people here, ACAIN members, who would want to know if I want to work with CIBC to have my books distributed outside of Nigeria. What do I need to do?
So the first thing that you want to do is send a proposal email to us. Let me go to the end here. I'll put that on the screen so everyone can copy it down. tcibchelp@gmail.com. So if you email us, we can send you general information, or you can send us specifically what you're looking to distribute. We would ask for some sample copies and then set up a meeting with you to kind of discuss, how you're wanting to distribute, what some of your questions are, and then go forward from there.
So how many schools do you have access to? And again, it would still be good to understand why Nigeria. I believe your background is from a different country. So why Nigeria in particular? Is there something that is particularly attractive about the Nigerian children's book industry or the children's illustration industry, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess to share a little bit more about myself personally, I am from the United States. I moved to the continent when I was 18 years old. I moved to South Africa. I lived there for about 6 years. And then I recently moved to Nigeria this year. I've visited Nigeria for the first time last year. I stayed here about 5 weeks, and I specifically was just really amazed by the amount of creative opportunity within the country. It's something that a lot of media doesn't really cover outside of the continent, of the creative hub that's happening here within the arts, within writing, within music. It's a fascinating, especially Lagos is a really fascinating city to be in because there's so much talent here, and there are very limited resources here to be able to take that talent outside of the country or even establish itself very well in the country. So I got connected with the founder of TCIBC and was just very engaged with the vision behind it. And I'm personally very passionate about it. And I also feel very proud that something international would be based in Lagos. I think we see a lot of these things being based in the UK, somewhere in Europe or the US as well, still very Western focused, but to have something internationally focused be based in Lagos, I think is very exciting. What was the first question that you asked?
No, I think she asked something about the backers and who's backing the project, because we had some questions within the group as to the identity, who are these people? Why are they here? What have they been doing, you know?
Yes, yeah. So locally, we work with about 10 different schools. Obviously, we're always looking for more schools to work with to locally distribute. It's really partnership based. The book club is partnership based. We don't really have a Western company backing us or anything. We specifically look for local publishing companies, as well as local self-published authors to partner with and distribute with. So for example, we've just recently started working with Kunda Kids because they have a very similar vision of spreading awareness about African history to children. They have really fantastic illustrators that work for them as well. So we knew that we really wanted to work with them right from the start.
Phoebe, I think I can also help here. This is Shegun speaking. I'm the chair of the board at the Children's International Book Club, as well as the Children's Art Gallery. At the moment, we're self-financed. So I'm personally financing the book club. At the moment, my background is in technology, but I have children who love art and the creative side, and that's why we set up the Children's Art Gallery, and that's why we set up the Children's International Book Club. But I'm looking forward to the International Book Club starting to finance itself, so that I can sort of then continue to offer the advice and support to get it to grow to where it needs to be, and also to capture and report on the social impact that it's having in the community. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Shegun. And thank you, Phoebe. If you have any questions, so now to the audience, if you have any questions, please post your questions in the comment section so that we can read them out, we want this to be as engaging as possible. And if you go away with your questions, I'm not sure we would have done much help that way. So the only way we can address your concerns or anything that you would like to have addressed is for you to ask those questions. So while we wait for questions, my question, Phoebe, I have many, so I'll just ask them while I'm waiting for the people to ask their questions. And if you do want to ask a question and you want to speak, just use the emoji finger to raise your hands so that I'll know to call you to speak. Okay, so I have a question here from Mrs. Talabi. I think this is for Phoebe and Shegun. Who are the members of TCIBC?
Sorry, it cut out. What was the question?
Who are the members of TCIBC?
The members.
Who are the members? Are the members children? Are the members authors? Are the members publishers? Who are the members of the book? A book club connotes that there's a membership and
Yes.
that you meet regularly. So who are the members?
So the of the book club is for the children. We want, the whole idea of a club is that you're a part of something. So we want children to come into the book club and feel that every reading option that they have is something that they can relate to and inspires them. We don't specifically have a membership structure for authors. It's a partnership structure.
But can I also add to that? I think specifically the question she's asking is, how do we reach the readership? And the members will be the schools. So our distribution of the books are through schools. So we and that membership is being formulated, and we don't sort of formulate it to say, you sort of you sort of pay a membership fee or anything like that. But once we then partner with a school, they get onto our distribution list, and those are the schools we then push the books through. Right. So I mean, we're only about 4-5 months old now. because we started middle of this year, and we're building that school distribution list as we go along. So, but the thing is, with regular book clubs, you have a membership structure of individuals who are typically reading, and there are not that many children book clubs, because it's very difficult for you to reach or take the individual details of these children. So the way we're choosing to distribute these books is through the schools. So once the schools then then join our distribution list, then we can reach all of their students. Now, obviously, some of the things we're also looking at is perhaps how we can reach a readership community that may not be in school, and that on that side is a little bit more tricky. But the way that we're reaching our readership, which I think is the question you're asking, is through the school network.
Thank you, Segun. Thank you, Phoebe.
Mm-hmm.
I've got another question here from Shade. Shade says, good morning, Segun. It might be best to make your website a bit more informative. The children's book industry is a delicate one and requires layers of scrutiny. Do bear with the questions we pose. Your current profiles are so important as the business side of things. This can be achieved via your public profiles. So again, it would sound like, we're asking a lot of questions related to who are you, what do you do, who's backing you, who are your members, and things like that. It's also because, we can find a lot of that information going through your website. So that's what Shade is saying in there. So would you say your distributorship is geared more towards Nigerian distributorship? So getting international books distributed or getting foreign books distributed within Nigeria, or is it more of getting Nigerian books distributed outside of Nigeria?
It's getting Nigerian books from books for children, books by children, distributed within Nigeria and outside of Nigeria through a school network. So that's what we are doing. So personally, I've got sort of relationships with a number of African governments that we are then able to reach through the ministries of education, access to their schools, and therefore the idea is to get as many of these schools being members of the book club, and therefore being able to then reach their students. So that's the objective as we continue to scale our distribution list for the benefit of authors. But we are looking to do exactly what we're doing here with books from Nigerian authors, with Rwandan authors, with Zambian authors, with Kenyan authors, because we also believe that the students here could also benefit from that continental knowledge as well, from authors from other African countries.
Thank you, Segun. Olami Dotun has a question, but I think you've only, I think he's just addressed that question. Do you distribute outside of African countries too?
We do that through the ebook infrastructure. So obviously, once we get you onto an ebook platform, that would mean that you will be able to have a Brazilian reader read your book. What we don't do is obviously the distribution of physical copies to South America or North America or anything like that. But where we believe that we have the logistical connection, for example, then we can sort of engage with those where there's a sort of straightforward distribution. We're very close to Rwanda Air. And so if you can think of perhaps any country where Rwanda Air goes to, we'll be able to do a physical distribution in that country. Other than that, it will be through the ebook infrastructure that people would need to engage. But as we continue to look at ways to expand that, I mean, if we get access to logistic distribution to a country through then that for physical distribution. But for now, I mean, the thoughts of accessing countries outside of the continent would be in and around sort of ebook and audiobook distribution.
Okay, so I've got another question here, and it says, what about those who already have their ebook? So now I'm guessing what you have just explained speaks to those who perhaps have the physical version of their books and no ebooks. What if an author already has an ebook? So what would you be offering such authors?
So I mean, sort of on two broad sides. One of them is the physical distribution through the school network. So an author doesn't need our help if they already have their books very widely distributed on the physical side and they have an ebook, then they wouldn't need our help. I think for those who either have not been able to get their book as ebooks to increase their readership and to increase their access to FX revenue, then we can add value. And for those who are probably struggling with distribution of physical print within or outside of Nigeria, then we can help. So we know that there will be authors and publishers who've got it all covered, and maybe they could just be a cool partner to come stop by and say hi, But I think we're certainly clear that there is a need out there, and for those who need us, we're happy to help.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So my next question is around this distributorship of a thing. I mean, clearly to distribute these books, let's say we're talking about physical books, to distribute these books require printing them, storing them. And so how do these things work from your side? Would you require people to, would you be doing the printing and the warehousing and the distributing, or would you require, and these things, also involve capital, putting down money and to make sure that the books are available, or would the authors be doing these things then be get to you? What about the logistics of it? How would they get the books across to you? The shipping costs, the holding cost, all of those things.
Okay, so I can explain a little bit about that. We will typically work with either self-published authors or authors or publishers who have published their book, right? So we're not sort of publishers in that context. Some people have said maybe if we are sort of taking a manuscript and doing some sort of quality check or having a conversation about upgrading the illustration and things like that, then we may be serving as publishers. And I said, well, in that case, then we're e-publishers, because we will do that only from an ebook standpoint. And if that context helps you to improve your physical print so that you do an upgraded version, then so be it. But we're not sort of making the investment for the author in print or storage or distribution. So typically we would hold very small copies, perhaps, that enable us to fulfill a physical request for the purchase of the book online. But that would be it. So we would expect that the author would have the physical copies of the books printed and ready to distribute, and then at the request, then be able to perhaps get it to us, and then we get it to the destination, for the author. But obviously the cost of logistics and all of that obviously needs to be paid at the point that the book is purchased anyway. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks. I mean, all the questions will probably not be fully answered here. Again, I'm hoping that Beyond This would be able to come together as ACAIN, and whatever partnership that would want to have, we can have collectively, maybe with you. I have another question here, which says, actually, I have two questions. So the first one is, what criteria do you use to determine the author you choose to partner with and books you distribute?
So that would be there will be a quality review. I mean, we would review anything that's submitted into us, and there will be a quality review, and the outcome of that quality review would be how we make the decision in terms of a specific written criteria. If it's a book for children or it's a book by children, then we would review it. And we're looking for everything from the quality of the illustration to the quality of the text to the flow, to what we believe that perhaps will have public readership interest, and on that basis we make a decision. So it's not sort of a tick list that we will we can share on here, and then it means that anything that is on that tick list will make it through. No. Some of it is technical, and some of it is I guess somewhat subjective, based on the assessment that we're able to make.
Okay, so I hope that answers your question, Miriam. Next question is, based on a previous response, I see you have Masobe and Kunda Kids. Since they already have their books in print and digital, how do you work with them?
Okay, so the conditions that we have with each individual publisher is obviously sort of what I say confidential to that author or that publisher. But like I said, based on the scope of services that we offer, this could either be someone's trying to enhance their distribution locally or continent-wide, and they may or may not need the ebook support. But within the scope of those services, we will be supporting publishers and authors based on what we agree that they need, and we're able to offer them. Does that help?
Shade, does that help? If that helps, please type in the chat section. If it doesn't, or if you have further questions, please do let Shagun and Phoebe know. So my next question, she says not really. Shade, Kasena, can you unmute Shade to ask her question? So maybe typing isn't really doing it. Okay, while I await Kasena to unmute Shade, my next question is about something that you mentioned, Phoebe, during the course of your presentation. And it is that, authors should make themselves visible, be out there, give free copies of your book. And, we've been having this conversation today. It's mostly around the business of, it's around the business of being an author, not just the writing part of it. And so when you say these things, the question that comes to mind is, how do you balance this financially? How many copies of books? What exactly is even the profit margin? The cost of printing the books are so high. What is the profit margin of that you're going to get on a book that by the time you give how many copies away, you barely even break even? So is it that we should just, give these things away with the hope of not making a profit? Because at the end of the day, you're almost like giving away your profit,
Yes, exactly. Thank you for asking that question. That's a good one. So let me clarify a little bit. I definitely don't think it's wise to give away most of your copies of books for free. I think it's important to make your literature accessible. So posting online about reading your books live, for example, raffle drawings wouldn't be free. That's a great way to actually promote your book while also getting a little bit of income. So people can pay a certain amount of money for a raffle drawing, and then at the end of that, whoever wins would get it. And I think it's important to be strategic. Something that I've actually been quite surprised by is, since we've started the book club, we've actually had a lot of people who would just come and give me a stack of their books for free. They would write my name in it. If you do have a social media page, if someone follows you or follows certain steps, then they can be a part of a prize drawing. But I don't think it's wise to give your literature or publications away for free en masse. You should be very wise about that and make sure that when you are giving it away, you're seeing a positive return on that.
So, Phoebe, if I may, what type of volumes have you typically seen so far, like in terms of volume of sales? Like, what type of volume of sales have you been able to achieve? And then also, my next question is, what types of books have you noticed, if there are some types of books more than others that are more popularly demanded? And then my next question is, your payment terms. Do you buy the books up front from the authors, or do you pay them based on sales? And then, if so, what is your payment cycle? Like, how frequently do you pay the authors whose books you distribute? Thank you.
Yes, so I'll work backward on answering those. So typically, how distributors pay is either monthly or yearly. So we do a 30-day scheme. At the end of the month, you would receive your percentage of profit from the sales. And like I mentioned before, we typically do a 30% distributor margin, which is pretty typical within Nigeria and within the continent. The second question, what was your second question? Sorry.
I wasn't writing them down. I was speaking as I was inspired. But I believe my questions
I think I'll help you.
Thank you, my love. Thanks, Bassett.
I'll help you. So the first one, so you're working backwards, is the profit cycle. Do you buy or do you pay when you sell?
Yes, so like I mentioned before, we pay on a 30-day cycle. Something that's interesting, actually, that goes to a lot of the questions that are being asked with just about the distribution and within the industry as well. If you take time to research, every publicator, every author has a different standard of what distribution should look like. So it really comes to, what the agreement is between who you're partnering with and how exactly you're distributing. But TCIBC, we pay on a 30-day cycle.
Yes, so then she asked.
So let me just add to that.
Sorry, before you add, Shagun, let me say this question before I then forget it, because we neither of us wrote down the questions. So and then you can answer and then answer that one. So the question was, have you noticed a trend, in terms of what books are?
Yes.
What do the numbers look like? So those are the first two questions. What do the numbers look like in terms of like distribution and uptake? And have you noticed a trend in terms of maybe a particular, type of books move faster than some other types of books? So those are the first two questions. Shall I go over to you?
Okay, so thank you for that. and every time I meet Pumi, she's always asking me questions. So I'm used to the series of 3 questions in a row. The first one was in relation to the payment and whether or not we buy. So we don't buy. The books are generally given to us on a consignment basis, and then we pay based on a 30-day cycle. The second thing with that is in terms of the what we have noticed. I think the storybooks with a lot of sort of local context, I find have been doing well, and there's been a lot of interest in those books. Especially those with very what's what I'm looking for. So with really good illustrations, for want of a better way to describe it. Kunda Kids, for example, who is an African Queens. I think a lot of the audience find that quite relatable. So the trend has been focused on sort of leisure storybooks, with a lot of illustration and averagely larger size font sizes in terms of the text. So that has been, I think, the trend. In terms of exact numbers, I don't think we've been around long enough to be able to make any comparative trends in terms of sort of year on year or things like that. But I think we'll probably have more, much better stats by the same time next year.
And then the other question was about volume. Like, what kind of volumes do you collect per time? Do you ask authors to, delete 30 books, 100 books? Like, what type of volume do you work with?
No, because we haven't got a lot of storage space, so no more than 5. But in terms of the meeting engagement that we'll have with you, we would also try to understand a little bit about your supply cycle. So, for example, we have authors that we're working with who, for example, are based in Uyo, and they can't get their books to us any earlier than sort of 7 days from when we request. So perhaps maybe with that we'll store a little bit more, just based on what we, what space we believe we have, and what sort of order volumes we might be getting for their books, and then also try to make that as part of you build that in as part of our delivery promise. That if a book is ordered on a Monday, you won't get it in 14 days because it's going to take 7 days for it to get to us, and then for us to get it to the buyer. So that's sort of the kind of so everything is really on a sort of one-to-one basis. But we don't. I mean, let's say for example we had an author who could get their books to us within 4 hours of us making a request, then we wouldn't store anything at all.
Thank you, Shagun. Thank you, Phoebe. So I've got this question.
Sorry to interrupt. I do have another comment about trends that we've seen around children's literature. Aside from storybooks for younger children, something as well that we've seen is there's a large interest for chapter books for children, but there's not very many chapter books available, especially for children who are in secondary school, teenagers. A lot of them are ready for more advanced literature, and so the only options for them currently are adult books. So we would love to see more chapter books based on or made for older children that kind of dive into some deeper subjects as well.
Thanks, Phoebe. So I'm hoping you can speak to something which probably happens with you, but would happen with other people too. You're encouraging authors to reach out and form partnerships and reach out to, influencers, people. What you often find is when you reach out to people and say, maybe people who already have a platform, and say to them, oh, I'd like to partner with you. I'd like to send you a copy of my book. They if you're not in the same location, they're most likely going to ask you for maybe a PDF version of your book or an accessible version of your book. So how do you handle this thing around when people request for a PDF version of your book? Because that is you literally giving out your book. Anything could happen. Like if someone asks you to, so that they can review, and I'm not sure what you request for when people reach out to you to say they want to partner. But when you give out a PDF version of your book, anything could happen to that PDF version. And so is it a risk worth taking, or how should authors navigate this request? Is there a place where you can safely put your book so that when other people ask to see the free version, or a version that they can review, then you can direct them there and you know that your book is still safe? Then, also copyright issues like, my book is going to be safe when I give it to you. Nothing else is going to happen to it from there. So what can you say about that?
Yes, I definitely would not recommend sending your books as PDFs to particularly people who you're just wanting to read as an audience. They don't know anything about you and you don't know anything about them. So there's no reason for you to trust them with a version of your book that they could do whatever they want with it. What I think is important with people that you're trying to partner with, that is specifically locally. It's very important to have a local following if you're looking into international distribution, because there's certain trends and things that you'll learn locally that would also apply internationally. So I would say if you can personally attend some book clubs, some of them are online, some of them are in person as well. Get to know people specifically, and only really share these things with people you trust, especially if it's not copyrighted. But definitely, I wouldn't share PDF versions. There are some free options online where you can, for example, upload a PDF or a manuscript into some book that people could read through. But if you're wanting to give a specific person a sample that would be able to promote your work, I recommend trying to do a physical copy, because when they're promoting it as well, they can physically hold the book in their hand, show the title, flip through it, read through it, and it's a bit more engaging than just sending a digital copy to somebody. I think it's less likely that they would do anything to promote a digital copy.
Would Kindle be a recommended venue to do the same thing, like ask people to read? Say if your book was available on Kindle for free, because you're running a promotion, can you ask people then to go and read the free Kindle version if they want to have an idea of the book, to know whether to promote it on their pages or not?
Yeah, so again, it's really up to what authors are trying to get out of creating accessible avenues for their books. A lot of authors don't opt in for free ebook versions because a lot of people now don't actually purchase physical books, they purchase ebooks. So to create an ebook for free really wouldn't give you an advantage. What I do recommend is if you do have an ebook already, you can create maybe the first 10 pages for free, or people can read the introduction or a chapter from the book for free. Something to note as well is in the US and the UK, if you list on Kindle, public libraries have partnership with Kindle where people can actually rent ebooks for free. So even if we list your ebook and you're getting paid for it, it is also going to be accessible, say for children who can't afford to buy books if they work with their local library, if they go through their local library. Not every single public library offers it in the United States, but the majority of them do.
Okay, so I've got something from David. With bookcreator.com, you can create a non-downloadable e-version of your book. Send a public link to the people so they can read it, and you can revoke the link after a few days. I've used that with many people asking to see samples of my books when I can't send them the hard copy. Thank you for sharing that, David. We've got only a few minutes left, and so if I don't have any other question, I'd like you to address this thing around finding balance. So as a new author, you know, ACAIN is open to people who are just starting out and people who have been in the publishing business for a while. For people who are just starting out, or for anyone really, it might be difficult to find a balance between how far should I go in terms of trying to gain visibility, you know, how much should I give in terms of trying to gain visibility? How much is too much? How little is too little? You know, so how do you manage that uncertainty in your mind as to how far? Is there something? Is there like a yardstick that you can say, okay, at least give out X number of books, or give out Y number of books, or make sure you're on X number of platforms, that sort of thing, so that you're not constantly in that cycle of, I need to gain visibility, right? And in the process of trying to, quote unquote, gain visibility, you're reaching out to any and everyone and giving away, you know, you don't know where to draw the line.
Yes, definitely. Good question. I don't think there's a specific formula, unfortunately. Again, I think it comes down to keeping track of your sales, knowing your cost of production, knowing the profit you make when you sell each book. If you can see that you're making a reasonable amount of profit, feel free. If you feel comfortable giving away copies of your book and gaining visibility. However, I think there's a lot of opportunities to get visibility without spending a lot of money on it. For example, using social media, there's so many creative things that you can do, as well as doing, you know, live in-person or online events where you read your book. I think something else that's extremely important is talk to your fellow members of ACAIN as well as authors. I think as I'm not a writer, but as an artist, I have always had a mentor who's been experienced in the arts for many more years than me, who I can go to and ask for advice about these things and ask about their specific experience. It really comes down to what you decide, but I think it's important to know what other authors have done in the past.
Okay, so I think Shade's question is for Segun around what arrangements you have with maybe other people that you're working with. So Shade has said here, I posed the question, as you said, an author would not need your services if they have their books on the market locally and globally. I did not consider my question breaching on confidentiality. It's on your website. So, okay. I think Segun is already responding to that. So I am conscious of how much time we have spent and how much time we left. And again, I really want to honor people's time. I want to say thank you, a huge thank you to you, Phoebe, and thank you to Segun. The subject we have picked today is a subject that, you know, I don't want to call it controversial, but it's a delicate subject because a lot of authors have the zeal to write and then what happens is that you have done like the first hard part, which is putting the creative work out there, and then the second hard part is how do I get people to buy it. So again, you know, this is a very useful topic. It's delicate, one that touches on how people feel, and hopefully maybe we can go back to it again in the course of our the coming year. So again, thank you so much, Phoebe, and thank you so much, Segun.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thank you, everyone.
So we have come to the end of today's workshop. I am so sorry. I was so keen to make this end at 11:30, but it's unfortunate when we're having so much fun. Time just speeds by. So thank you, everyone, and we hope to see you next year. So enjoy the holiday season. Have a peaceful and safe holiday, and we'll see you again in 2023 by God's grace. Tell more people about ACAIN, and we'll come back to you for the reviews. Yes, we need those reviews to be out there so a lot more people can learn about the work that we're doing here. Thank you so much, Phoebe. Thank you so much, Shegun. It's been amazing talking to both of you today. And with that, I say, enjoy your holidays and bye.